Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Bunch of people sent me a funny story, and this is out of France. I don't normally do a lot of legal stuff in other countries, especially when their legal systems are so wildly different from ours. But this is interesting in that I believe there could be a setting where this could happen in America. I believe that could be the case. But here, Brad, Michael, Tim, Trocon all said, Steve, check this out. A man won the legal right to not be fun at work after refusing to embrace excessive alcoholism and promiscuity. And Stephanie Stacy wrote this for BusinessInsider.com. And yes, the man was in a workplace where they said, "You're no fun." And they fired him. And he says, "You can't fire me because I don't partake in your fun." So a French court has ruled that companies cannot fire their workers simply for failing to be sufficiently fun. The ruling comes after a man who is referred in the pleadings as, I'm not making this up, Mr. T, who we know if that was the real Mr. T, that man was fun. Okay? So Mr. T was fired from a Paris consultant firm in 2015, so this goes back ways, for refusing to participate in after-work activities they called team building that often involved alcohol. Now, I will point out that it happened in 2015, and this is a much later year right now. I'm a busy man, I haven't looked lately. But that shows you that the legal systems in other countries are just as slow as ours. According to court documents, Mr. T joined the firm in February of 2011, was promoted in 2014, but fired a year later for professional incompetence. And they specifically said it was his refusal to follow the company's fun values. And we all know if you're going to hire a business consulting firm, you want them to be fun. So the firm that he worked for also said that he was difficult to work with and a poor listener. So you wonder if any of that's true or if they piled that on later. You never know. According to the court opinion here, the company's fun values included regular, obligatory social events that often culminated in excessive alcoholism, encouraged by colleagues who made very large quantities of alcohol available. A lot of drinking, as they say, as well as practices pushed by colleagues involving bullying, incitement to excess, and even promiscuity. So no one's saying that the atmosphere wasn't fun. They're saying that this man was no fun because he wouldn't play along. So the court, which by the way is the highest in France, according to this, also outlined various humiliating and intrusive practices promoted by the consulting firm, including simulations of adult activities and the obligation to perhaps bed hop. I'm cleaning that up a little bit, but I'm sure you understand since we're all adults here. In a judgment issued just a few weeks ago, this year, the court found that because Mr. T's lack of participation in the company's fund values and critical behavior were reasons cited for his dismissal, he had been wrongfully fired. Court ruled that the man was exercising his freedom of expression by refusing to participate in the company's social activities, and that performing this fundamental freedom could not be a reason for his dismissal. Now, the consulting firm did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Business Insider, but Mr. T's demand of 461,000 euros in damages was previously rejected by a lower court, but the recent ruling by this court partially overturned that judgment. Now, the court ordered the consulting firm to immediately pay the man 3,000 euros, and they will then examine his demand for further damages at a later stage. And it looks like a euro is a little tiny bit more than $1 because he demanded 461,000 euros. And they translate that here as to $479,000. So they flipped him a few grand right now, walking around money. But since he was wrongfully discharged, somebody's going to revisit the issue of damages, back pay, and things of that nature. Now the question is, could you be fired because you're no fun? And by the way, I'm going to ruin this for a bunch of people, but there is, of course, the Monty Python skit, "You're no fun anymore." And so I'm well aware of that. I'm trying to avoid shifting gears here. And so the question is, could you be fired because you're no fun? And of course, it boils down to whether or not you're in an at-will state where you can be fired or hired for no reason, and where you can quit for no reason if you just feel like it. We've discussed that before. There was a situation with the hospital workers in Wisconsin who were at will, and many of them quit to go work at another hospital, and the first hospital sued to stop them, and a judge actually granted a temporary restraining order for a very brief period of time, and then he let it go, and the workers eventually left. And many people understandably question, why would a judge say that a hospital can stop at-will workers from leaving? Who doesn't understand at-will here? The hospital or the court? And like I pointed out at the time, the way injunctions work, the injunction was granted as a temporary one on a Friday and lifted on a Monday. And I suspected that that was going to happen simply because TROs can get granted and then dissolved just as quickly. And I suspected that the court was trying to do that to allow the parties an opportunity to somehow make it go smoother. And if it didn't, Monday. So here, if you were someplace that could not fire you at will, okay, you have a contract. It's possible you have a contract, right? And so I know people who've worked, for instance, in radio. And they worked at a radio station. And they had a contract. And the contract says that you will work here and perform and do this, that, and everything. It's all spelled out. I've actually read contracts. I've had friends in the industry bring me their contracts. I've read them. And I've read these contracts. It says, here's what we're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to get paid. Here's the length of the contract. Here's what happens when we get towards the end of this, whether we can extend it or not. And of course, you can still get fired for cause. If you screw up really bad, you can get fired. What if you're no fun? Well, you can't be fired just because you're no fun. So if you wanted to work at that radio station, you've got a contract, and they decide to let you go because they don't think you're fun anymore. Now, you might say, Steve, some radio stations hire disc jockeys because they're humorous. Might not being fun be part of what they're being hired for? The problem with that, of course, is that that's indefinable. What is fun? What is humor? We all know people who don't know what that is. Many of them run radio stations. So really, what I'm getting at here is that most of those contracts say, here are the things you can be fired for. And then it'll say, for cause, and it'll list a few examples. And so if you, for instance, got arrested for some grave criminal offense, you can probably get fired for that because the radio station doesn't want to get associated with criminals. Likewise, if you incurred a gigantic fine from the FCC, you might get fired for that too. So the fact that they come in one day and say, hey, you know something, dude, Christmas party that we had on Christmas Eve, everybody's getting drunk but you. You're no fun anymore. You're out of here. That'd be a breach of contract. So that is an interesting angle. I do not know how much of the French labor system is based on at will. I don't know if it is at all. It might be that they have to fire you for cause. I don't know. So if I have any people here familiar with the French legal system and the workplace labor law issues that arise therefrom, please chime in. Try to do it in English. I mean, JP, if you want to, you can do it in French, okay? But we'll have to translate it. Actually, something, either way, I'm fine with either one. But it is an interesting story. So Tim, Trocon, Michael, and Brad, thank you for sending it. A man won the legal right to not be fun at work after refusing to embrace the excessive alcoholism and promiscuity in the after-hours team-building exercises. That's what we call it. Yeah, honey, I was with my friends team building. Stephanie Stacy wrote that from BusinessInsider.com. And, of course, the University of Michigan won their big game on Saturday against Ohio State. I wore the shirt in the last video for them. And I don't know why, but this just came up next. Talk about opposite ends of the spectrum. In fact, this team started off the year with a coach many people in Michigan did not like. He said some bad things about the Wolverines back in the day. But interestingly, he is no longer the head coach of this team. So there you go. There you go. Off topic. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Rest and be kind. You don't have to prove anything.